Hello, Phx+1. Here I am the day after our initial kickoff in spring 2019. And it's the day after the second live coaching call that I've had with you guys. And I had a BFO. Remember, BFO was blinding flash of the obvious. And it came to me as in, how can we make sure that what we're learning, what we're doing on those calls actually gets the chance to stick? And I think I've got a way to do it. What I'm suggesting is that I'll take all the things we talk about in those training calls and then make a recording after so that you can go back and listen to it. So if you were there, you can go back to refresh your mind. If unfortunately you missed it, you can go back to learn it as well as listening to the calls. The key here in what we're going to be discussing is starting to change your habits in conversations. We're looking and we're inspecting those ways that we're having conversations with people. Now, this morning I got a chance to go to a networking event and I wanted to take what we talked about and put it into practice. And let me tell you what, it works. Okay, so for right now, I've got, and one other thing, these are not going to be perfectly done. They're going to be done very off the cuff. Hopefully though, they will be genuine and authentic and apply specifically to what you are facing out there in your networking and all your conversations with people. Okay, so what I want to go over today are different conversation points where you'll meet people, whether you're at a networking event and you've never met them before, or if you already do know them. Okay, so those are two things I want to go over. And then also the trifecta question flow. We talked about this a lot Tuesday morning, but I want to make sure that that's really clear, that trifecta question flow. And how to be a value giver, a little bit more on that. And then finally, setting intention when we do go to networking events. So I'm going to start with setting intention when we do go to a networking event, or setting intention when you are doing a show. Because as Linda shared with us, one of the most obvious places that you may or may not be networking at are your shows. These are a great opportunity to connect with people and get to know them using the things and all the skills that we're learning from the little black book of connections. Okay, so setting intention. When I work with a lot of sales professionals, I'll ask, all right, you're getting on this call, what is it you want to get out of it? And they'll say, I want to get a sale. Yes, I don't disagree with that. I know you want to get a sale. However, there are a lot of things that need to happen before we get to the sale. We need to crack a nut. We need to find the interest that somebody would have. So when we talk about setting intention, whether you're going to a networking event or you are doing a show and there might be some new people you've never met, and you'll know that before the show happens, but setting that intention, is it to get to know more about the people that I haven't met yet? Is it to find somebody who's passionate about clothing if you're going to a networking event that you don't know anybody? Or is it maybe to find somebody who's frustrated with their clothing? Right? Those are the first steps to planting that seed and cultivating a relationship that will blossom into something very important and something beautiful to you. So those intentions, when we talk about setting intentions, that's really what we mean. It's what are those seeds that you're looking for when you are going into a environment. All right, so conversation points, and Mary gave us some great ones, and we developed a couple other ones during Tuesday's call. But if you don't know the person yet, and you're at a networking event, someone comes up to you and says, what do you do? All right, I'm going to share a story with you first off, but I was at a networking event when I first started, and I was so excited to let people know I was a business coach. And I walked in and I met Gary, and I said, Gary, what do you do? He says, oh, I own an advertising agency. And he looked at my name tag and he said, Tiffany, what do you do? I said, I'm a business coach. Gary literally stepped back and said, whoa, I don't need that. I said, of course you don't, Gary. What do you need? He said, well, I'm looking for women business owners. Now, the universe played this perfectly for me. And I said, Gary, you're not going to believe this, but I'm hosting an event in 2 weeks for all women business owners about how to grow their business. And if you come as my guest, you're going to be the only gentleman in the crowd. Would you like to be my guest? Well, Gary came, Gary saw, Gary got clients, and Gary did become a client of the firm that I was with at that time. But that initial, oh, I don't need that, is very common, whether people will physically do it the way Gary did and put his hands up, or internally they're thinking, yeah, I don't need what this person's selling. So we need to shift the conversation to be more interactive. And that's what I did this morning. I took the things that we talked about and I went and I lived them. And I'm going to share how I did it and then talk about the ways that we've already uncovered that you can do it with Cabby. And then I want you to start thinking of some others. So what I wanted to do was open up a conversation though, so people started thinking of something positive. So when people asked me, oh, Tiffany, what do you do? I said, before I answer that, is it okay if I ask you a question? Now everybody said, yes. If I ask you who was the most influential and the best manager, boss, leader that you've ever worked with, who comes to mind? Now imagine if I asked Phx+1 that. I know that you're going to say Linda. Okay, so, and then the next one is, once they told me a name, I said, why? And from that, I heard, oh, well, gosh, I've had the chance to always work with my father, who is the ex-CEO of LifeLock. And I'm getting introduced to him now. I also heard, well, it was somebody that I worked with right out of college. And then I also heard, gosh, nobody comes to mind. Now, for each one of those answers, I was able to then share with them what I do based on what they shared with me. So from there, if it was somebody who said, gosh, no one even comes to mind, I say, that is actually a problem. And that's a problem in the working world. If we don't have the chance to think of somebody who's been a great influence on our life from a leadership standpoint, we're missing out. And I'm on a mission to help leaders grow and help their teams grow through personal and professional development. Now, I didn't get a great lead out of this yet. However, I did get the chance to continue a conversation with somebody where they weren't like, whoa, I don't need that. And the conversations continued on then, and they started asking me more about how I did it and what goes on in that world of training and why it's different. So it was very different when I was able to turn that around with questions. So what questions can you ask? Mary Carangelo gave us some great ones where if somebody says, what do you do? Again, hey, before I answer that, is it okay if I ask you a question? And most people are going to say, sure. And then your response is, your question is, well, when you were getting dressed for the day or to come to this event and you went into your closet, was it an anxious moment or did you feel joy? Now, either one of those answers are really good for you because you can take that and then whatever they say, well, gosh, yeah, it was easy for me to do. Why was that? Or no, it was awful. I hate getting dressed in the morning. Oh, tell me more about that. Whatever their answer is, you ask them to tell you a little bit more because that's where that seed is going to start to get planted and you're going to hear what it is they either like or that they don't like, that you can then introduce what you do and how it connects with what they have shared with you. All right. So that is a really powerful way for you right now to go to a networking event and start meeting people that you don't know. Because what we are doing together is we are creating your contact list and we're making it bigger and we're making it wider and we're making it deeper. And it only happens through action. Okay, so that's a great way to start that conversation. Another one that I was thinking could work for you, again, take it and play with it. But if someone says, what do you do? And hey, before I answer that, is it okay if I ask you a quick question? And they're going to say, sure. Now, if I ask you, what is your favorite outfit? What comes to mind? And they may, or what's your go-to outfit when you have an important meeting? And they're probably going to roll their eyes up in their head. And that means they're thinking, they're looking at their closet in order to answer that question. So they might look up and then they're going to give you their answer. and you ask why. Why is that your favorite outfit? And they're going to tell you why. Well, my friends, you have just learned what's important to them. And you take what you've learned, and now you can customize your response to them. It's a lot of fun. Okay, now, in order to do that, though, remember, you're going to have to let your charisma take a backseat to your curiosity. Everyone in this group is pretty charismatic. And while that's a great quality to have, sometimes we start to lean on that too much while we're in meetings. And we think we've got to be on, we've got to be entertaining people. And that's not the case. The more curious you can be about somebody, the better you're going to connect with them. And the more they're going to start to trust you because they can feel that genuine interest. So everyone here is charismatic. However, when it comes to this networking, let your charisma take a backseat to your curiosity. All right, so we've talked about curiosity, setting intentions. Oh, and then the last thing on when you let your curiosity drive the car, you're going to find out how you can be a value giver. I met a woman this morning who wasn't going to be a prospect for me. And yet the more I was asking questions, the more she started opening up. And it turns out that she's with Arbonne and she has 16 people in her downline. And, you know, Linda's shared with me a book that's really great. And I think a lot of people who are in industries where you are independent and you're growing your own business, it's really good for. So I was able to recommend that book to her. You know, value giving. And first, though, before I did that, I said, are you open to any book recommendations? Before I simply said, hey, I've got a great book for you. It's important before you give that little bit of value to ask them. So imagine you're talking to somebody and they're frustrated with their clothing and you say, well, gosh, would you be open to any tips on how to dress? And they say, well, sure. Doesn't mean you give them that tip right there. Maybe you then put them on your email list with Cabby so that they start getting style tips, whatever that is. But make sure you ask before you just give it. Because otherwise, if you remember in one of my other videos, you might turn into the gentleman who gives all these advice to people and they never listen, right? We want to make sure that they're open to receiving that. Okay, so the trifecta question flow. This is where you're having a conversation, and this might be more, a little bit more of a one-on-one than it is at a networking event. But before you get into a solution that you have, you want to make sure that you've asked 3 questions before you give a solution. So, you know, what's one of the biggest challenges you feel in getting dressed? Oh, I don't know. I don't seem to have the right pieces and nothing seems to go together. Well, right there, I know you're ready to jump in with how you can help, but hold it back. Don't jump in yet. Ask them, tell me more about that. And let them go on. And then finally say, and what else? Because it's important to dig out deeper what's going on instead of a simple surface answer. Because if you get down deeper, you're going to get to the root of really what's important to them. And now you'll understand them better. And then when you share how you can help them, they're more receptive to it. Remember, we've talked about before, sometimes giving constructive feedback. And if somebody's not open and ready to hear it, you can have the best feedback in the world, but they're not opening to hear it. And you might have the best fashion tip in the world. But if they're not ready to hear it, it's not going to sit with them. It's not going to change them. It's not going to give them value. So that trifecta questions, and try this at home. Try this with your kids, with your spouse, with your friends. When you're asking questions, before you're ready to jump back in, try to ask 3 questions before you give a response. Whew. All right, so all of this is fantastic, but let me tell you what, we need to get out and test and measure it. So we need to try the trifecta question. We need to try this opening if we talk to somebody and we say, and they're asking us, what do you do? Get out there, try these things, and then when we come back, we're going to be able to continue growing on them. Another piece that's very important to keep in mind is practicing and role playing. So get your accountability partner on the call, get somebody else, and role play this. I was practicing this out loud in my car. Hey, before I answer that, is it okay if I ask you a question? Practice it and practice those questions, and your confidence is going to be ready to go. And you're going to walk into any event, any show with so much intention that you're going to be blown away with what you walk out with, and the new contacts and the new people that you've met at a deeper level that you're ready to hopefully do more business with. Okay, so from here, you guys already know, make sure you get me your 90-day plans. I have quite a few, but if you haven't gotten those yet, please do that. And remember, we're building your contact list. So however you are doing that, whether you're using Excel, you're using another database, find a tool and start building that contact list. People you meet with, people at shows. Your contact list really is your bread and butter. How you work this is going to make all the difference. So we're going to talk about how to work it, but first we got to have it. So continue building it and make sure that it is accessible and relevant. So, all right, this was 16 minutes. We're going almost to 17 minutes here. Hopefully this is helpful in reinforcing what we learned in our calls so that you can go out there and to do this. So questions you have are going to be extremely important. The more prepared you come to each one of our live coaching sessions, whether it's Monday evening or Tuesday morning, and the more experience you have in trying these things, the more you're going to get out of it. Remember, our number one rule in our rules of the game is 100% participation. So go do it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.